I'm David Volk, a voice of the resistance. And we go back in the recently Wayback Machine for Project 2025's never-ending chapter. As Stephen Bishop once said, on and on, on and on, on and on. On and on, I just keep on trying, and I smile when I feel like dying. On and on, on and on, on and on. From the Stephen Bishop song, I'm sure you will never guess the name of. At this point, I'm not sure if the refrain from an old Stephen Bishop song applies to how I feel about my daily look at Project 2025, or if it describes the Heritage Foundation's endless attempts to create the shit show of a country they'd like to see. They just keep on trying, on, and now they're closer than ever before. And for some reason, immigration seems to be at the center of it. I'm guessing if they had their way, this would be a whites-only country with people from other races flown into the country in the morning to serve them and helicoptered out at night when their services are no longer needed until the next day. So let's get to it, shall we? Here are today's abomination highlights. 1. Crisis. What crisis? Most people know the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, as the organization that helps bail out survivors after a natural disaster. But there's more to it than that. And Project 2025 spends more time than necessary covering it before coming to the point. FEMA is currently in the business of giving grants to the Department of Homeland Security with conditions attached on how they can be spent, and Heritage doesn't like that. It wants the states to figure out how to spend the cash, even if one of those states decides to go out and get rip-roaring drunk. Also, it wants to privatize the National Flood Insurance Program. As you know, privatization always makes everything better because private business is always more efficient in that it likes to take in a lot of money and give back very little in exchange. Or in return, I should say. That's why private insurance companies will refuse to cover hurricane damage, saying that flooding caused the damage, not the storm. And then flooding insurance companies will say the storm caused the damage, not the flood. Under their proposal, private flood insurance companies will then turn around and say they won't recover the costs, as I've said, because the hurricane caused the damage. Is this a great country or what? They also want to cut government oversight by having only one administrator approved by the Senate, not 4. What's that about? 2. Let's move the coast. Well, not really. Project 2025 still feels that U.S. commercial interests extend up to 200 miles away from the coast. It just wants to expand what is considered the coast. Heritage is so worried about China flexing its muscles that it wants Coast Guard jurisdiction to extend up to 200 miles away from U.S. territories like American Samoa and the Marshall Islands, which are thousands of miles away from the U.S. West Coast. 2025 also wants to review all hiring decisions and promotions made under the Biden administration. All of them. And remember how members of the military were kicked out if they refused to take the COVID vaccine and remained a threat to others? Heritage wants them rehired with back pay. In a related move, they also want the Coast Guard's next admiral to be someone named Typhoid Mary. 3, why is it called the Secret Service if everyone knows about it? Chapter author Ken the Cooch Cuccinelli says morale is low at the Secret Service because its employees are asked to do too many things, including protecting the president and investigating electronic financial crimes related to immigration. The Cooch says the service should only be in the presidential protection business and financial crimes should go to the Justice Department, which would be controlled by the president, presumably so he could get a piece of the action. 4, making transportation great again. The Cooch wants the Transportation Safety Administration privatized and, shock of shocks, de-unionized. Is that even a real word? He recognizes the government will be able to save 15 to 20% on the existing screening budget by privatizing and bringing in scabs. Yeah, right. What are they going to do? Make travelers pay for the right to be felt up by Officer Friendly? I don't think so. 5. Don't you worry your pretty little head about that crime over there, sweetie. Talk about burying the lead. Project 2025 finally gets around to cybersecurity and a matter of the utmost urgency about 30 pages into the chapter. What's so important? the cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies' role in the government. That's what. Those patriotic guys at Heritage, who are totally not in the tank for Russia and other foreign powers, say that CISA, which we've just called the cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies' role, should not be in the business of monitoring and debunking disinformation, especially as it applies to U.S. elections. In fact, they say that role inappropriately expanded during the 2016 election when there were rumors of Russian involvement and disinformation that, quote, turned out to be a Clinton campaign dirty trick, end quote. In fact, the Goose says its only role in the election should be to make sure states have good cyber hygiene before votes are cast. As Project 2025 puts it, quote, the federal government cannot be the arbiter of the truth. When did that happen? I'm sure this will come as a great surprise to people who rely on the government to regulate weights and measures and decide disputes in federal courts and other, government-y stuff. In unrelated news, there are now reports that the Heritage Foundation has changed its slogan to, quote, the show's over, nothing left to see here, everybody go on about your business and head on home. Well, it ain't over, and we're not going home. And the saga continues. I've been David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and funny one.